it's because when I was younger, I used to tell my brothers, I'm educated, not domesticated. And I would reject
Ooh.
this idea that I had to serve. However, my older sister served my brother-in-law, and she was a stay-home wife. And I feel like that job was so much harder than maybe my job as a student or whatever job I took. But my mother traveled the world praying for people. So I saw my father take care of us. My father cooked, he cleaned. And so as I got older and I started examining gender roles, I didn't grow up with many gender roles. We were outside mowing the lawn, washing the cars. And so I was really raised as a tomboy. But now that I have my own children, I want to serve them and I want to serve my husband. And there's times when he cooks and there's times when I cook. And there are moments when nobody cooks and we just order. And for us, it's about a balance, a partnership that we have one another. And I saw that partnership with my mother and my father. There was a partnership, although she was raised to serve, and she always served my dad and she gave him the best plate. So we're always like, oh, what's he got on his plate?
Yeah.
But I also know that as I got older and I started identifying as a Chicana feminist, and that for me, Chicana feminism is really inclusive of having men in my life. So it's not the absence of men, but I learned that a lot of these traditions that we have now take on were really brought to us from colonization, right? There were no real gender roles. There was clan mothers, there were chiefs, there were, in our indigenous culture, we were a village, we were a community. There was no this hierarchy. And so I talk a lot about that in some of the writings that I'm doing right now around the gender roles, around how oftentimes some of the way in which we view women has really been brought on based on religion and colonization.
So I agree 100%. So do you think that Latinas are raised to be caregivers to men versus leaders?
Oh, absolutely. I do. It wasn't my experience. And I think that's the reason why I am the type of leader that I am, right? Because there was no hindrance on my ability to do what I wanted to do or who I wanted to become. But I do know in my older sister didn't have the same expectation than I did, right? My older sister was, not allowed to play sports. She was probably trained to serve, right? And for me, I was like, by the time it got to the fifth one, they're like, oh, what's she doing? Está en la calle. I was out doing all these other things. But I do believe Latinas are cultivated to serve specifically their man and not fulfill their own dreams.
So let's take a deeper dive into this, because I think it's bigger than just catering to a man and how it plays in different areas of our lives. Because I know, when you get a bunch of Latinas together, it's so interesting because it does depend on how they were raised. But I find that they are competing for the attention of men, and they are competing to be chosen, and they are competing to kind of show up as this caregiver supreme. I'm the queen caregiver, choose me. And what do you think that does to Latinas and the cultura in general if we continue to kind of carry on those traditions? Because I think it's interesting what you said. When I was younger, so I was raised by my dad, and every summer I would go to Puerto Rico, and that is where I would be with my tias and their husbands and my cousins, and all of my tias would cater to their men. It was always them getting served first, not working. My tios were the breadwinner, and they would be at work all day, and we'd be at the water park, the kids with my tias. But it felt so loving. It felt so natural, and it felt like it was something that I should do. And so the balance between how do you show up as a caregiver that comes natural and still be a leader? How do you cater to both of those roles? So Miguel, given your experience and how you grew up and the woman in your life, how do you think we need to create this balance where it's okay to be both, or it's important for you to create balance so that you're able to be both A caregiver, if that's what you wish, and also a leader.
Well, in my experience,